it really strikes me as something that feels like it was written for a film. Now, this is the first one of your books that I've written. Is that the style of writing that you would normally go for, or is this something new that you've sort of become better and better at as you've envisioned your books being made into films?
Yeah, no, I've always been a cinematic writer. I've always, even from the beginning of my career, set out to write books that could be adapted. I usually sell the movie even before I write the book. So I write a 14-page treatment or synopsis of the story, sell it to Hollywood, then sell the publishing rights, write the book with the intention of it always being made into a movie. I mean, I consider myself a nonfiction entertainer. I'm trying to tell true stories in a way that people want to see them and read them. And so I've always kind of written in that fashion. And the success of The Social Network, and I had a previous movie called 21 based on the Blackjack story, have gotten me, a lot of ins in Hollywood, so that when I do come up with a story, I'm able to present it there as early as I present it, to the publisher. So it's all in my head to do it as a movie always. Yeah. Well, and some critics are like, what are you actually doing here? Are you trying to write movies? Or are you trying to write books? My feeling is that there's this synergy now, and that the idea is that people want to see things. And if you can write in a style where they can actually see it on the page, I think that works in a really good way for nonfiction. So that's what I've always set out to do.
I mean, I really enjoy the way that everything is so descriptively written. It makes it very easy to imagine yourself there. And it's thankfully for me quite antithetical to the style that because I'm also writing a book on this topic, but more about the Reddit community.
Yes.
So reading the first few pages, I was just like, oh dear, am I going to be I've been beaten to the point here? But thankfully,
it's very
you've gone, yeah. So when did you first decide to write it?
So the GameStop story, it happened, or it came to a head January of this year. And literally I was watching it happen just like everyone else. I've always been interested in stocks. I've dabbled in penny stocks in the past. I'm into the crypto world. I wrote a book about crypto and everything. So, I was seeing it go on. And then all of a sudden I started getting all these emails and all these tweets, and people were like, you should be writing this story. It's right up your alley. Because I write about high gambling. I write about people who are in these high stakes Wall Street situations all the time. And so I dove in, and it was like a Wednesday when it all came to a head. And by Friday I had a proposal, and I'd sold it in a big studio bidding war to a Hollywood studio. And so I really started working on it right there. And it was tricky because you're writing a book while it's happening. So you're trying to reach all the characters who are in the middle of it, the congressional hearing going on. It was nuts. But that's when I really started writing it. And I wrote the book over the next couple months. So, it was wild. It was a wild experience. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that let's go with this first. How immersed in the online community did you get whilst you were writing the book? Because obviously there's an outrageous amount of in-jokes and sort of Reddit humor. And so how deep into reading what was going on what was Wall Street Bets then?
Yes.
How deep were you in there?
Yeah. So I was spending all day there looking around. I had some guides, which was great. So basically people reached out to me on Twitter when they found out I was writing the book, and wonderfully were sending me tons and tons of streams and showing me what were the best memes and the funniest tweets and Reddit jokes and who were the big characters. So listen, I'm no expert, but I was there all day as much as I could, trying to sort of get into the heads of what was going on there. A couple of the characters that I chose to write about were regular people who were on the Reddit boards a lot. And so telling it through their eyes made me be able to see things that I personally would not have seen. So there's a college kid that I wrote about, one of my characters. And then there was a single mother of two who's a registered nurse who was a Trump supporter, a really fascinating character. And then a third character was a young woman this was going to be her year. And then, of course, it wasn't because of the pandemic and everything. And so she doesn't have the marriage that she wanted, the wedding that she wanted, and she's pregnant during a pandemic and gets COVID and all this kind of stuff. So telling it through their eyes allowed me to look onto the Reddit board in different ways. From that angle, I definitely think, I'm not going to get every joke that's thrown out there, obviously, but I think I got to highlight the important things. I was really thrilled to be able to put in the book something like, the Tendy Man, the whole ballad there, and something like that, because those were funny and they resonated with the Chernobyl explosion, or I wanted to describe those important moments in this story.
Yeah. The online community has been fascinating.
Yeah.
What did you find like the most difficult part of this saga to kind of get your head around? So you said you sort of dabbled in stocks and penny stocks. So that I'm assuming that the financial jargon wasn't as difficult for you to get your head around as like the internet lingo.
No. So the financial stuff is fine. I obviously I'm not a Wall Street banker. So understanding short selling to the point where I could describe it simply, those are things that I do though. And so having written Wall Street books before, I know who to talk to. I know how to ask the questions. So those things were not as difficult. Also social media. I mean, I wrote the Social Network book, so I kind of am pretty aware of the whole social media scene and the bigger themes of it. For me, honestly, the hardest part of this story is that because it takes place in this moment in time, this pandemic, nobody ever actually comes face to face with each other, right? So you're writing cinematic scenes where all of life transpires via Zoom, right? Via your computer.
Yeah.
So how do you come together in a dramatic telling? And I'm thinking of this from the movie point of view, without people ever being in the room with each other. And that becomes very interesting and tricky. And yet they did all come together through this congressional hearing. They're all brought in front of Congress, all of the main characters. So it was kind of cool in that there was this point where they do come together. But I think for me, the hardest part getting my head around this story was, how do you tell it without it being, a bunch of people sitting and staring at their computers? And we go back to the Social Network with that. When we made the Social Network, one of the things we wanted to be very cognizant of is we never wanted to have people sitting around looking at their computers. When the reality is that was a story about the guy who created Facebook, right? So you have to find a way to dramatize or make it interesting. And it's all there. The story was all there because it was happening in real time. So I could see all the different angles. It was just a matter of getting my head around how is the best way to tell this story in an exciting, interesting way. So that was the hardest part. It wasn't any of the concepts. It was thematically, how do you approach a story like that?
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the podcast. Don't forget our sponsor, ExpressVPN, and my book, Brexit, the Establishment Civil War, can both be found in the links in the description below. And also, please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. It's the best way to help us grow. Until next time, thanks for listening. Screw the hedge funds.
You can make as many rules as you want, but if there's no teeth behind them, what's the point?
Well, like Citadel is potentially just gone in a few months. It feels like financial institutions, that they are all laughing at us by buying GME. Screw the hedge funds. Like, I will lose my entire investment if it brings them down.
Why on earth, last May, could you buy the entire company for $200 million?
What's been happening on Reddit and in social media and in the marketplace has never been seen before.
I argue that nothing is off the table. There is nothing off the table when dealing with the volumes of money in something as big as the United States stock market.
The hedge funds have clearly underestimated a group of people raised on Friday night World of Warcraft raids.
Dark pools, they're another mechanism to manipulate and cheat. Mainstream journalists don't say these things for a number of reasons. One is their sources are the people that I'm talking about, and so they can't call somebody a crook.
Super Stonk and the other communities that have emerged are a hive mind, the likes of which we have never seen before. It's madness and brilliance, insanity and genius all rolled into one. It's very possible that Citadel will be gone in a few months. And not just Citadel, but the entire financial system has the potential to come crashing down. These crooks continue to gamble recklessly with the world economy, and this could be the moment that they finally get their justice.